The whole point of tonight's conversation is, as promised, Facebook and YouTube, to give you all an opportunity. I make a lot of videos, okay, about personality types and relationships and how to foster healthy relationships, not just dating and romantic relationships, but relationships with other human beings in general, because that's a necessary part of our lives to exist and have any semblance of happiness as we go forward. Why do I make all of these videos? What is the story behind it? So as a person who has been able, I'm sitting across from my wife as we speak, to put together almost 15 years of a happy marriage, I have been around marriages and relationships that aren't very happy and been a part of them. Not necessarily being in a romantic relationship with people, but watched other relationships that struggled. And I know from friends and family in different places in the world, there are a lot of people who want to have happiness, but they just don't know how to get to it. I feel like my wife and I have cracked the code on that to a certain degree, not because we're ultimately amazing or genius people, although I'd argue she's amazing and genius, more so because we've had a lot of mentors and a lot of help along the way, and we've looked at how people have done it wrong and been able to apply the lessons from those mistakes to our life and not have to encounter those. Not to say that our relationship is perfect by any stretch. The relationship would be perfect if it weren't for me, because she's awesome. And I'm not just saying that because she's sitting here. This is actually true. She's an amazing person. But the whole purpose is to help any of you who are in relationships who maybe have some strain, to help you overcome some of that strain and reach the happiness that you're looking for. Or maybe some of you are younger, looking to start relationships, and you want to be able to kick them off on the right foot from the jump, the way that I was able to, because I had a lot of mentorship. My wife had a lot of mentorship as well. So that's what this is all about. I promised, and I directed this at the ladies. Men, you are most welcome to ask questions as well. But the reason why I directed it at the ladies is I wanted to give ladies an opportunity to ask a man questions about the inner workings of happy relationships. Because I think some of the stereotypes, and I'm kind of a believer that it's not really a stereotype if it happens all the time, that a lot of the strain that happens in relationships, especially for folks, let me clarify, I'm working with folks here that are looking to build long-term marriages, not like hit it and quit it situations. Not really my thing, not my wife's thing. Even before we were married, wasn't really our bag. And a lot of the strain sometimes comes from people who don't know how to communicate, people that don't know how to establish proper commitments and boundaries. But I talk to men all the time about this stuff. I wanted to give the ladies an opportunity to ask a man questions that you may not obviously be able to ask the person you're in a relationship with, or if you're not in a relationship, you may not want to go to a man that you're interested in and ask these questions. I become sort of a go-between. I'm a safe person to ask the questions because I don't pose you any challenges. Obviously you're not trying to date me. It doesn't have to be awkward. Think of me as like a older brother that can answer some of the questions that you have. So that said, long dialogue, monologue, diatribe out of the way. Let's get to the questions as we promised here. So let me start with the actual questions. Let's see. What a Mitch says, hi Bryant. Hey Bryant, happy Easter. What's up? Happy Easter. Kate Ballard says, what do you think about an ENTJ, INTJ marriage? Happy Easter. So I've said it a couple of times on different videos, and I assume that all of you don't watch all of my videos all the time. But one of the things that I've really been driving home on the YouTube videos specifically is this idea that personality type is important, but it's not the most important thing. I have books. I think my son actually took. Babe, do you see my personality type book anywhere around here? The one that X was reading? The Please Understand Me. You don't have to get it. If it's not here, it's fine. Anyway, the books oftentimes will tell you that this personality type or this temperament, the NT, me, and the NF, my wife, usually do well together over time and observation, and that's fine. Or these types of personalities, basically what a lot of the books will teach you is that the S type and the N type is where most of the conflict on Earth takes place. And I think there's some truth to that. Honestly, I've seen more conflict probably in my own life from the feeler and the thinker decision-making process functions. But what I want to get you in the mindset of is it's not necessarily the personality type that's going to put the relationship, set the right foundation. I think the biggest thing you need to ask, more so than will an INTJ and an ENTJ work together, because they totally can, by the way. But every personality type that syncs up with each other is going to bring certain strengths and weaknesses to the party. The things you can't budge on are values. Okay, so if you have a certain value set that says this is what I believe in, these are the things I will not compromise on in terms of morality and values, you need to make sure that the person that you link up with for marriage shares those, maybe not those exact values, but they're never going to put you in a compromising situation. The example I use a lot of times is if you are a vegan, just a staunch vegan who believes that killing and eating animals is like it's just amoral, like it's a sin, then getting with someone that eats the paleo diet and believes in that and is a bodybuilder is probably not going to be a good fit for you, because no matter what your personality types are, you're going to have values that bang heads against one another. The second piece, once you lay the foundation of values, is really setting up the temperament, not of the personality, but of just the soul of the person. So one of the reasons why my wife and I are able to sustain a lot of happiness even when we have conflict is that we both are very tolerant people. We're both very accepting people when it comes to other people. So there's certain things about me I'm sure she would like to change or be different, but she's not going to spend her whole life obsessing over me. Like, for example, I'm not a metrosexual type guy who dresses up in preppy clothes and like these t-shirts and hats and stuff you see me wearing. That's literally how I dress. Right? That's my MO. And I've been with girls and I've met girls who used to just pester me about, why don't you dress more nicely? You should wear these button-up shirts and these Docker shoes. Like, no, it's not who I am. I'm not doing it because it's uncomfortable to me and I don't like dressing that way. It's just not my style. And she could spend her whole life trying to change that about me. It's going to drive her nuts. But she won't, because she's tolerant. Would she like me to dress nicer? I don't know. Maybe a little bit. But she doesn't obsess over trying to change that about me. So what you want to make sure you're linking up with more so than the personality type is values and tolerance. Don't get with someone that's going to try to change you, because you're not going to change. If you're over the age of 16, you ain't changing. Simple as that. I mean, you can change certain things about you, certain behavior tendencies, but you're not going to change the core of who you are. So once you have that laid out, I need more study on this because I am not an expert or a guru, but I truly believe that if you have your values set and you have similar temperaments and tempers and goals too, like your goals, not just your values, but your life goals need to work together. If you both want to pursue something that's going to fight against one another, then it's not a good fit. It's just not. My wife has a lot of ambitions to do things in life, but she put those things on the shelf to be at home with our kids because both of us value family. And though at some point she will pursue those ambitions, she was willing to put those ambitions on the shelf so that the kids could come first and the family part of our existence could come first. Right? Am I saying anything crazy? No, I'm on. So if she were highly ambitious and couldn't live that way, then our desire to have kids in a family, it really wouldn't have worked. So there would have been a lot of stress and strife. And personality type would not have changed that. If she was my opposite personality type, it wouldn't have worked. Granted, there are certain personality types that you're going to struggle with depending on how they are. As an ENTJ, an IS, I'd say like ISTJs could be problematic, very much so. But you could also get along with ISTJs too, depending on their temperament, again, their values and their tolerance. So that's what I would say to that. Can an ENTJ and INTJ work? I think absolutely. But every personality type has strengths and weaknesses. So Brittany says, talk about INFJ women and how others might perceive us. So INFJ women, first of all, you're very rare. You're extremely rare. You are the world's best listeners on the planet. And I think the way the world perceives you, I think, is going to be different for each person. And what you'll find, too, with one of the things personality type testing, at least the Myers-Briggs, I think, is not strong in, is helping measure people who are very balanced. Right? So an INFJ, to me, is going to be seen as a sounding board. They're the consummate listeners. They're going to help me as a person. They're going to help me tone down some of my more boisterous tendencies and let me know, but they're not going to sugarcoat also. They're going to let me know when the emperor has no clothes on, but they're going to do it in a loving and a caring way and a lot more sensitive way than I probably would. So I think as an INFJ, there's a great balance there. But I think if I had to guess how the world perceives you, I don't know that there's one way, but I'd say it's that you're very picky. And I imagine, Brittany, there's probably been men in your life, depending on your age, if you're dating and things of that nature. When I look at YouTube pictures, I can't tell how old you are, or YouTube or Facebook. I can't tell how old people are. So we'll assume that you've had some relationships. I imagine that you've had men that thought they weren't good enough for you because you've had high standards. Like they felt very loved and nurtured, but at the same time, they felt like they couldn't live up to a standard that you set, because INFJs are also the consummate perfectionists, not just in relationships, but just in your life in general. And I think the key there, for an INFJ, I think you really have to seek out someone who's very well developed and mature. So I could imagine for a woman, an INFJ would be attracted to an older man who has more, an INFJ woman would be attracted probably to an older man who has more world experience, more patience, more tolerance, less chasing kind of that YOLO lifestyle that the younger generation would be after. What's up? You want to add something?
What's YOLO?
You only live once. The Kim Kardashian lifestyle kind of thing. So my wife had to ask what YOLO is. But which is cool because maybe some people on the call here don't know what it is either. So Brittany, you can chime in and let me know if I'm on the money there, and we can flesh that question out, and I could probably answer it a little bit better than that going forward. Sandy Beaches says, ENTP female having a tough time with memories of an INFJ/INTJ. Okay. Maybe we can flesh that out going forward. I am not funny says, could a gay person be married to someone whom they are not attracted to and be happy? I really don't know the answer to that. I think that's a very personal, individual question, one that I'm not really qualified to answer for you. I think that's really a question that you would have to ask yourself. Could you be happy with someone that you're in? And you have to define what attraction means to you. Is that physical attraction? Is that intellectual attraction? You know what I mean? Is it attraction to a certain type of demeanor? Different things attract different people. So I think that's something that you'd have to do some soul searching on your own. Sandy Beaches says, I was told that people think of someone when that person is thinking of them. Okay. Jordan says, what do you think of two introverts getting married? I think it's fine. I think two introverts can be fine together. I think that one of the cool things, so my wife and I are both extroverts, but I think one of the things you have to look at as well is not just whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. It's also looking at what are your cognitive functions. So if you know your whole personality type and you've been to the websites that show you what your cognitive functions are for that personality type, you'll find that regardless of what your personality type is, you have some extroverted and some introverted cognitive functions. So for example, my primary cognitive function, and what I mean by cognitive functions for folks that aren't used to all this terminology, is the way your mind works. So my primary mental state is extroverted thinking. That's how I make decisions. It's my strongest cognitive function, which is then served by introverted intuition. So there are people that have met me in different parts of my life who thought that I was actually an introvert because I didn't talk a lot in a situation. Extroverts are stereotypically seen as these people who just never shut up. While that's true for me in a lot of cases, in situations where I don't know people, I tend to be more quiet and observe and just get a lay of the room, a lay of the land before I open my mouth and start submitting things. Right? So I think digging deeper just beyond whether both of you are introverted, can you get along? Absolutely. 100%. There's no reason why you couldn't. But look into your cognitive functions and find out which ones are extroverted and which ones are introverted and see how those mesh up. Because I have introverted feeling, for example, is my weakest function. My wife has extroverted feeling as her strongest function. So there could be some conflict there because her decision-making process as an extroverted feeler centers around how does this decision affect our group, our tribe, our people, the people that are around us. My primary function being extroverted thinking is How does this decision get us to the desired outcome? It's not, my cognitive functions do not focus on the people first, they focus on the outcomes. Now, usually I'm working toward outcomes that are best for the people. It's not to say that I don't consider people at all. It's just I'm willing to make a harder decision that may put a little bit of strain on people if it gets us to where all the people want to be. Right? So those are the things you want to think through. But can two introverts be together? Absolutely. Landon says, what time zone are you in? Eastern time. Brittany says, what are some reasons a man can commit to one woman and not another? How much time do you have for me to answer that question? What are some reasons a man can commit to one woman and not to another? I think one of the easiest things you can point to is that the woman that he doesn't commit to just simply isn't a good fit for him. She may have the type of personality that is off-putting to him. It's not attractive, or maybe depending on the type of man, it may be a physical thing. He may be able to commit to a woman he finds very physically beautiful, whereas it may be a little bit harder for him to commit to someone he doesn't find physically beautiful because that's something that's important to him. So there could be any number of reasons why a man would have trouble committing, and a woman too. That goes both ways. Island Jane 97 says, what do ENTJ men look for most in women? There's a number of things that we look for. I don't know that there's one thing that if you get this one thing right, the ENTJ is going to love you forever. I can tell you, you have to be an intellectual match for your ENTJ man. If you are into, and I'm going to be real about this, and this is going to be I'm going to use some examples that may be different from ENTJ to ENTJ, but the principle will be the same. If you're the type of YOLO lifestyle, I just like to watch the Kardashians and the Real Basketball Housewives of whatever, and that's your life, like your life is just all entertainment and let's go to happy hour and there's no intellectual stimulation there, then an ENTJ man is going to get very bored with you to the point of frustration, where it's like, good God, can we talk about something besides what the Kardashians did last week? So first and foremost, you need to be an intellectual match for an ENTJ man. Let me make sure I'm reading that right. So yeah, we're looking for an intellectual match. We're also looking for someone that has, you have to understand that ENTJs value harmony a great deal. We do not like strife. As much as we can be combative, we don't like conflict for the sake of conflict. We're willing to have conflict to get to a desired outcome, but we would rather do it peacefully. Like my wife and I talk all the time that peace and harmony in our house is more important than either one of us being right. There are times where she wanted to do something, and she's sitting right here with me, so you guys know I'm not just talking about her. There are times where I've wanted to do something and she disagreed with me, and I just went with what she was saying, because us having peace in the house for me and harmony was more important than me being right. I would take peace and harmony over being right 100 times out of 100. So if you are an argumentative, and though ENTJs can be seen as argumentative, a lot of times we like to debate because it helps us. We're extroverted thinkers, so we solidify. We're extroverted thinkers followed by introverted intuitors. So we need other people to bounce ideas off of to solidify the things we think consciously and subconsciously. Okay, but we don't like arguing. We hate it. Like people that just want to fight with us and tell us we're wrong. It's not part of our psyche. So you want to have, again, intellectual match. You want to be a peace-loving person, someone that values harmony over being right or being the alpha. Because we don't seek to be the alpha. We just seek to live free and live in harmony in our environment. And when it comes to physical attraction, let's use that one as well. Your mindset is going to make you more physically attractive than just the way that you look. Remember, the way to an ENTJ's heart is through here. It's not through the stomach. It's not through, the five senses and physicality. It's right through here. Even when you're talking about like sexual situations, everything for us is about the fantasy that's in our mind and being able to entice us in that mental intellectual way. Okay, more so than in the, my wife responds a lot more to uh, the physical interaction, that type of intimacy. And don't get me wrong, I love physical interaction. But the point is the way to an ENTJ's heart is through his head or her head. So always keep that in mind. Ice Blaze says, hey, B, can you give us tips on how to find mentors and how to approach them and ask them to be your coach mentor, especially for an INTP? Sure. The best way to find a mentor is first to understand where it is that you're trying to go and what you need to be mentored in. Find the best people around you who are already winning at that, and then go offer them your services for free. Okay, go and offer, and I don't mean necessarily like it doesn't have to be like a job. What I mean is, if you want someone to mentor you, offer them something from yourself first. Like, hey, I know that you run a business doing X. I bring Y skill to the table. I'm willing to give you of my time and my efforts and my abilities completely for free. I want to help you out. And, this isn't a completely selfless request. I'm actually doing it because I'd love for you to take me under your wing and mentor you. And you can find mentors in a lot of different ways. You can find mentors. A lot of my mentors are in my family. I just spent, if you've been keeping up with me on Snapchat and Instagram, which you absolutely should be, by the way, people. If you're not with Snapchat and Instagram, you need to get on it. Snapchat's where I do all my fun stuff. We just sang my brother happy birthday, his belated birthday. We celebrated Easter over at my mom and dad's house. We told jokes and did funny videos on Snapchat. I was doing my book for reviews and stuff. But we had this insanely intense and just enriching discussion and debate about the state of American politics and the American political system, and how, I have a lot of beef with the fact that our system hasn't evolved over hundreds of years since its inception, and really I don't think it ever fully will until we address the hearts and minds of the people. You change the system by changing the people, not by trying to just elect people and hope that the system's going to change. And my cousin had a lot of counterpoints to that. And the reason why I'm bringing this all up is because around that table were my older brothers and my uncle and my grandmother. And as I was giving my part of the debate, they were able to say things to me that were somewhat counter to what I believe, but it caused me to look at it from a different perspective, and it made my perspective more well-rounded. So start with your inner circle right where you are. Who's in your circle that can mentor you? But if it's something like a professional mentor or someone that's doing something in the professional world that you want to learn, go to them and offer them some free work. Like, hey, I'll take out the freaking trash. Like Mr. Miyagi and Daniel-san. I may be dating myself, but if you've seen The Karate Kid, and if you're younger and you saw the Will Smith son version of The Karate Kid, he went looking for a mentor, and that dude made him wash all his cars. Go wash their cars. And then ask them to mentor you in return. That's how I do it. Alf says, I'm supposed to be an INFJ, but I'm a little bit cold. Could I be another type? Possibly, but I think INFJs can have, depending on how you're defining cold, I think INFJs can certainly have a cold streak. Don't get me wrong. That J, when it comes out, it could be pretty serious business. Now, Sal, or is that Psy? It's too small. I think it's Psy 22 says, how would ENTJ women and INFP men mesh? Again, going back to what I said earlier, I think if you've nailed the foundational layers of the relationship, which is values, communicated values, shared values, and then shared temperament, and then shared goals, I think if you get those three things right in the relationship, then personality types are really just icing on the cake, because if you can get those things right, you can tolerate anybody. Certainly there are certain types of personality, and part of it comes to flexibility too. I've met people, if you look at, like if you took an ISFP, which would be my opposite personality type, we would have a lot of opposite characteristics, and I haven't looked at the cognitive functions. There may be more similarities than I'm realizing, but the point is, if that person is flexible and accepting, it's not really going to matter so much. You know what I mean? But can an ENTJ and an INFP, I think it was INFP, I think that could work just fine. Especially because the ENTJ is going to be very aggressive and not aggressive. They're going to be much more A-type personalities, assertive, and let's get this done, let's execute. The INFP is going to be more enabling, a little bit less of a desire to be the alpha. So that could be a good mix, because the INFP, while they bring a lot of strength to the table and wisdom to the table, and they're an NF temperament, so they're going to have a tendency to be able to balance out the NT temperament of the ENTJ. I think it could be a good fit, right? So just keep those things in mind. Let's see what we got here. Feeble Mind says, I love the INFJ ENFP dynamic. It's just sad ENFPs struggle with maturity issues and being authentic, which bothers the hell out of us INFJs. So what I would encourage Feeble Mind with is, it sounds like you've had one or two bad experiences with an ENFP. Don't write them all off. I think depending on how old you are, some of the lack of maturity is not necessarily related to personality types. In fact, my cousin, who I had the great debate with tonight, is an ENFP. And actually, no, it's not true. I think he's a J. But the point is, I wouldn't write off all ENFPs. Like, I never like to use the Myers-Briggs. One of the flaws of the Myers-Briggs is that it measures psychology. It uses psychology to make its measurements. There's some other tests that have come out in more recent years that use biology, things that you can actually measure in the human body. And the Myers-Briggs in a lot of ways works to pigeonhole people. Like, you're an ENTJ, so you're this. I've met ENTJs that I have a lot in common with, but in other areas we're very different. So every person, regardless of your personality type, is going to have some type of nuance, something that sets them apart from one another, even if they have the same personality type. So my encouragement to you is look less at the personality type and just look more for the maturity in people. Just in general, you want to look for more mature people. It's totally cool if you sneeze on camera. You didn't have to run out of the room. My wife ran out of the room because she didn't want to sneeze on the show. I'm filming a show with baby diapers in the background, for God's sake. You didn't have to run. That's why you have feelers.
Although
Jordan,
it doesn't bother you, your audience may not.
Maybe it would have bothered the audience. I don't know. Jordan asks, why are INFJs rare? I'm sure we could do some type of evolutionary psychology study to figure that out. Same reason why ENTJs are rare. Think about it. If the whole world was ENTJs, I don't think we would ever have much peace, because you'd have a bunch of born leaders trying to lead a bunch of other born leaders, and it would be completely out of balance. So, the world is full, for example, of ISTJs, and ISTJs or SJs, just the temperament in general, are the consummate conservators, and you have a ton of them. And the reason why you have a ton of SJs is because you need people to sustain something when it's working. If everybody, and I always make this joke that if everybody in my company were an ENTJ, we'd be broke in a year, because we're all going to be looking at strategy and planning down the road and looking at these things we want to accomplish and goals, and nobody's paying attention to counting the money. You know what I mean? So it's why are they rare? I just think the way we've evolved over time has dictated that it be that way. I don't know, maybe in 10,000 years, INFJs will be the most needed thing on the planet, and that's what we'll have. But that's me guessing. I don't really know for sure. It's just some of what I've read about evolutionary psychology would lead me to believe that that's tied to it. Feeble Mind says, who knows, but being INFJ isn't that great. Trust me, we have contradictory cognitive functions. It leads to a lot of problems. Doesn't necessarily have to, though. Again, going back to being flexible and tolerant, that starts with being flexible and tolerant with yourselves. Give yourself some leeway. Accept yourself for who you are, and then other people will as well. Anna Jones says, hey, Bryant, let's talk about ENTJ women and how hard it is for us, I think she meant to say for us, to find a guy to date. I could see that being hard for you to find a guy to date as an ENTJ woman, because as an ENTJ man, it's hard for us to find a girl to date. So I definitely can share in that frustration, because one thing ENTJs are not born with is a whole lot of patience for silliness. I watch my single friends who are a little bit older live in the dating world, and I hear the things that they go through, and literally I've said to them, dude, if I were you, and this is not me giving them advice because we're different people, but I'm saying, were I in your shoes, I would just go be a monk. There's no way I'd put up with like this just silliness some of my friends have to put up with in the dating world, men and women. I'm just like, dude, I would just give up. There's no way, like, our need to have authentic, deep, intimate, harmonious connections that aren't superficial or shallow or ridiculous or putting up with childish people who can't just be in a relationship without drama. And that's another thing. We hate drama. And God, is the world addicted to drama. So I say all that, Anna, to say I feel your pain, but don't give up hope. So my wife and I are going to be launching a How to Build a Healthy and Happy Marriage program. If you guys are familiar with my marketing stuff that I do on my other YouTube channel, we have the Social Media Ninja Academy. We're building a similar type of, not really an academy, but it's a group where I'm going to bring people together, and we're going to every month have videos like these, but that go into way more detail about how to actually build these relationships over time and to build them healthily and happily, with the ultimate goal being changing the world and living a happy life. And we're definitely going to walk people through how to build those things. But one of the things I plan to talk about in there is, as an ENTJ, I always hated dating. I didn't do a lot of dating growing up. I was married at a very young age. And it was because I knew what I wanted. I had mentors that were schooling me at the age of 19 about how to build healthy relationships. Not just romantic ones, but just relationships in general. And I was able to bring that into a relationship with my wife. And she had coaches and mentors as well who were helping her. And it's one of the things I love about how I met my wife is I met her through my network of very close friends. And you got to remember, the last time I dated somebody, Match.com didn't even exist. All right, so I know it's a different world out there. It's maybe a little bit harder to look at your network. And basically I had two best friends in the Army. One of them is the one who introduced me to my wife, who was his cousin. He and I are not only best friends now, we are cousins. So it was very much me and this dude are very close. We share similar values. We have very similar upbringings. Military families, etc. So there's a lot of similarities there, and I'm a firm believer that human beings should run in packs of people who are like them. And I don't mean isolating people or ostracizing people, but you should run in groups where the people in your group share your values and your goals, right? I would not get in a group of people whose whole lifestyle is let's go to happy hour every Friday and just live it up, because I don't want to just live it up. I want to leave a legacy where I've had an impact on the world, where maybe somebody will talk about me after I'm gone in a positive way, hopefully. So think about the circles that you're running in, think about the friends that you're keeping, and work your network to see if there is a man somewhere in that network that you can, in a less awkward way than going on Match.com or Tinder or whatever, sexual apps are out there. I call them sexual apps because all the stories I hear about people meeting up on those things, that's what it turns into. Sure, I know people have found meaningful relationships through those systems, but remember, the last time I dated somebody, Match did not exist. So I'm out of that loop. Encourage you to just not give up, but also not obsess over I've got to find a man or find a woman. It will manifest itself when you're ready. Start to work inwardly on yourself and the things that you can develop as an ENTJ. There's plenty of things that we can work on. And all of those things will make you more attractive to the right types of people. But like I said, work within your network, get to know people around you and navigate the people, figure out how to navigate to the people who share your values, share your outlooks and your goals. And when you run in circles where the people are like you, eventually someone in that circle is going to know somebody that can probably bring somebody to the table for you. At least that's how it worked for me. So let's keep it moving. I'm looking. My wife's giving me looks. I want to make sure I'm not. I'm good. Okay, she gave me the thumbs up. I'm still good. All right.
I was just listening.
Dylan O'Leary says, as an INFP, I love ENTJs. I've heard it's because of the shared use of the extroverted thinking and introverted feeling axis. Could very well be. Could very well be. Let's see. Feeble Mind says, my best friend is ENTJ. She drives me nuts, but she's also like my social protector. LMAO. I can't not love her. There you go. Jordan, sometimes I wish I wasn't INFJ. It's very hard to mesh with people, and that's our main goal in life. Again, my advice to the INFJs out there is to look for the more mature people that are going somewhere to affect positive change, because your value system is definitely going to be a big part of why you do what you do in your life and why it's going to matter to you. And someone that appreciates you for who you are. And it may mean not necessarily that you have to find somebody older, because trust me, I know people way older than me that don't have half of the maturity of the young people that I work with. But look for that relational and social maturity in people, because that's what will keep you that's what will keep you interested in somebody, and they won't let you down as much as maybe some of the younger, less mature people will. Let's see. Sai22 says, I've never dated. You are not missing anything, Sai. Good on you. Anna Jones says, I want to be in your ninja group. Cool. So let me back up though. Are you talking about you want to be in my marketing ninja group, Anna? Or you want to be in the how to build the healthy relationship group? You can be in either or, but if you want to be in the marketing one, I can send you some information when we're done here tonight. Just let me know. If you want to be in the relationship one, stay tuned. My wife and I are hopefully going to be launching that in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned. Let's see. Island Jane says, as an INFP woman, I have to say your wife is so cool, and the story of your son's birthday party was very relatable for me and my party planning tendencies. Yes, ENTJs hate party planning. I don't know if I hate party planning. I'd rather wrestle a bear. Like, if there was no guarantee of me getting seriously injured or dying, and they're like, you can plan a party or a conference or wrestle a bear, I would run outside naked and wrestle a bear if I had to. Just without question. So let me look up something real quick. Should have pulled this up earlier before we started talking. Here we go. So, there we go. Cool. Izzy the Gentleman says, what's up, B? Should an INTJ be more realistic and flexible when it comes to finding a significant other? I feel like my standards are too idealistic and perfectionistic. So for my INTJs out there, remember, you live up here. There is a fantasy world that exists in your mind that you are trying to bring into the real world, and it frustrates you when you cannot get the real world to match what's going on in here. Make no mistake that you're going to carry that into relationships as well. So my thought here, Izzy, is that it's not so much about being realistic as it's about being flexible, because your imaginary fantasy world could be a reality. It's just the chances of it being the perfect reality that's in your mind are very low. So when it's not that way, it's about being flexible and saying and accepting something for what it is. And trust me, ENTJs struggle with this too. Like, accepting something for what it is instead of trying to force it to become what we think it should be. Okay, and that goes back to how ENTJs value harmony. Like, we're out of harmony when the world doesn't match our picture of it. Same, and especially so for you INTJs out there, because let me pull up something real quick here. Yeah, so you INTJs are going to lead with introverted intuition and then jump into extroverted thinking. For the extroverted NTJs, we're the reverse of that. So, yeah, you live in your brain. That introverted intuition, you don't come out of here, right? And then when you do come out with your extroverted thinking, you're very blunt and forthright about the way things should be, and people are looking at you like, what is this dude talking about? Or this lady talking about? So yes, you probably do need to be a little bit more realistic, but more importantly, you need to be more flexible and just accept that the world is never going to completely turn into this thing that you have in your brain, no matter who you become. You could become the next Sam Walton, Elon Musk. You're never going to be able to conform the world exactly to the way you think it should be. So identify the things you are unwilling to compromise on, the things up here that have to be right for you to be happy, and then the rest of them, just be flexible. Be like, I can accept that that's slightly different. All right? And by the way, folks, this conversation doesn't have to center around just personality types. You can ask me any questions you want to ask me about relationships. I just wanted to put that out there because I know a lot of the questions have centered around personality types tonight. Just want to make sure you know it's okay to ask me about even more basic or practical things about relationships. But I'm happy to continue with the personality type stuff as well. Let's see. Jordan. That's a good point, feeble mind. Okay, they're talking with one another. That's great. iSplit says, how can an INTP and ESTP have a healthy, less tumultuous relationship? I sometimes feel like we're rarely on the same wavelength. So, talking about an SP temperament with an NT temperament, there can be some very hefty differences there. But let's pull up the, where is it? You said INTP, right? So INTP is going to lead with introverted thinking, followed by extroverted intuition. And then ESTP was the other one. Yeah, so as it relates to the cognitive functions between the INTP and the ESFP, your cognitive functions are very different, especially your primary. So as an INTP, you're going to lead with introverted thinking. That means your decision-making process is always going to be tied to your personal value system, right, as an INTP. Your ESFP counterpart is going to lead with extroverted sensing, meaning the way they process information comes first. And they're going to process information about what they can see, taste, touch, smell, the five senses, and the things that are around them in their external environment, okay? And then they're going to move into introverted feeling, which means, and I'm sorry, you lead with introverted thinking. So your decision-making process is very much about you live in here, and it takes you maybe a longer time than most to make a decision and then to execute on it. Your ESFP partner is going to lead with the extroverted sensing, which can be tough for an NT or an NF. And then they're going to move into introverted feeling, which makes it hard as well because then their decision-making process is about their personal. So they're going to be like, why do you have your heads in the clouds, NF person, right? Or I'm sorry, NT. Why are you always thinking about these big picture frameworks instead of focusing on the here and now? And you're going to be like, I'm up in my brain trying to figure something out. And then I have extroverted intuition, which forces me to look at frameworks and big pictures. They start with, what about what's going on right here in the real world? Get out of the clouds, get out of your mind. And then when you don't do it, their feelings are hurt because now their next factor in their cognitive function is that introverted feeling that I'm making decisions based on my personal values. So how do you make that less tumultuous? You better have a heaping helping of tolerance, and you better be able to communicate well. To overcome that barrier, I often say any type of personality type can mesh together, and it's true. But this is one specifically where I could foresee a lot of challenges if you don't know how to communicate properly and effectively, and you're not able to foster an environment of tolerance and acceptance, because the way you all are taking action and the way you look at the world is very different. Right? So just keep that in mind. And so the answer to your question, I think, is to develop some very good communication skills where you can be very open and honest with one another and learn how to speak each other's language. Learn how a person who leads with extroverted sensing and then introverted feeling processes information. Read everything about the cognitive functions of that person so that when you speak, you can speak in their language. This is something that with my wife took me a long time to be able to do, and me, because the way we process information is so different, right? And the way we make decisions can be very different as well. And it's taken us years to learn how to speak to each other in a way that the other can receive it well. Okay? Let's keep those things in mind. All right. Let's see, Anna Jones says, thanks for the answer, Brian. You speak the truth. Oh, I just speak what I'm taught and I speak what I read, but thank you. Hopefully it's the truth.
And what I told you.
And what my wife tells me she says. That's actually not far from the truth itself. Anna Jones says, yes, I want to be in the marketing group. Oh, okay. Well, Anna, let me, if you guys will allow me to help Anna out real quick here. And I'm gonna put it in the comment section below so you can just go there. And you can pick whichever level you want to be at. I always recommend people to be VIPs because I think the VIP program is where you get the most bang for the buck, because every month you will be on a live call like this with me, but we'll actually be talking to one another, not just me talking while you are leaving comments. I'm just trying to pull up the website now. Oh, nope, that's my mentor's website. We use the same program here. Let's go to... All right, I think this is it. All right. So, all right, we're going to put Anna into... So, Anna, check the comment section. I'm leaving you a link for the marketing system. That'll give you all the information you could possibly ever want or need, probably more than you'd ever want or need. And if you have questions, just shoot me an email. I think my email is on the page. If not, it's in the About section of this website. You can shoot me an email and we can talk more about it then. Now, back to the questions. Iceblade says, I want to be in the Relationship Ninja group. Cool. So once we launch it, we'll be sure. Just to take a brief break to remind everybody, if you are not following me on Facebook, I'm going to put that in the comment section too. You got to follow me on Facebook. For the YouTubers. For those of you watching on Facebook, you're already there because I'm broadcasting on YouTube and Facebook tonight. But this is my Facebook page. So for everybody here, I highly encourage you to follow me on Facebook as well, because I've said it a million times on the marketing side of the house that YouTube just has not kept up with the times in terms of social media. I think it's a great video platform. It's an awesome search engine. It's not a great social platform. It's very hard for me to have conversations with you all and then to make the videos that you ask me for, because they go into the comment section of a video and then they get lost because they just get inundated with all the other comments I have. And then I'm searching through literally tens of pages trying to find this one comment that somebody left me where they're asking me to create a video about a specific question and I can't find it. And so I leave people hanging. So if you're with me on Facebook, not only is that going to go into my feed where I can just scroll through and find it fairly quickly, you can also send me a direct personal message where I'll see it and then I can respond to it whenever. But it's always there. I can always just scroll through. Here are the people that have sent you a message versus here's every comment anyone's ever left you. So definitely, if you don't follow me anywhere else, obviously I assume you're subscribed here on YouTube already. But if you don't follow me anywhere else, definitely follow me on Facebook. Obviously, I think Instagram and Snapchat are musts as well. Snapchat's more just for having fun. I posted a hilarious. If you're not with me on Snapchat, it's BRY Chambers. If you're on there, I posted some hilarious stuff today that my wife saw it and she was just like, I don't know why I married this dude. He's insane. So I do my more fun. I do some fun stuff on Facebook, or excuse me, on Snapchat. Every once in a while I'll do a funny video on Instagram, but Instagram is more about doing my book reviews. They work really well on Instagram more so than on YouTube. And then I also started using Musical.ly. Those videos are hilarious as well. And my wife's laughing because she just heard me talk about what I did on Musical.ly. All right, let's get back to the questions. Anyway, definitely be following me in those places. All right, that is the goal tonight. Izzy says, good advice. Thanks and God bless. God bless you too. Let's see. Nina Dreamy says, how would you describe an unhealthy ENTJ? I'm an INFP. I like an ENTJ, but I met one and I think he was that, and he was arrogant. It is just a question. I don't know, and I'm not offended at all. You can ask me anything you like. I'm certainly not going to get offended. It's a fair question. So think about what makes, if you've read about ENTJs, you understand what makes them great. ENTJ's nickname is the commander. They are natural born leaders. Now, obviously, they have to be coached and trained to lead effectively. They don't just get born and then the next day they're leading people. But even at a young age, you can see the tendencies they have to be able to lead and bring other people together to accomplish goals. So ENTJs can be amazing running corporations because they can come in, they can find out where the efficiencies are, where things are broken, get things fixed, remove things that don't need to be there, get the company focused on what's going to get them to their goals, et cetera, et cetera. In relationships, they can come in and be a huge part of motivating you, strengthening you, empowering you, bringing harmony. But the easy way to figure out what could go wrong with an ENTJ is look at what makes them great and then just overdo it. They can overdo all of those things. They can be arrogant. They can be insanely, or I should say we, because I'm an ENTJ, we could be arrogant. We could be insanely self-focused and self-absorbed. Remember, our second cognitive function is internal intuition, how we process information. We can have a tendency to isolate. And I've had those issues in my life where it's just like, if I'm in groups all the time where the people are not really my people, God love them, nothing wrong with them, but we're just going in two different directions, I'll isolate. And then when I do that, I end up causing myself pain because I need other people in order to thrive. And ENTJs are the consummate people that think we can just conquer the world by ourselves. And we can't, right? We can be loners and isolationists. Even though we're highly extroverted, we can totally just say, F the world, I'm going to do this myself. I'm tired of depending on other people. But yeah, arrogance, they can be overly direct. They can hurt feelings when we never intend to hurt people or bruise people or make people feel bad. It's not in us. But we can because of the way we speak. Because we're so focused on the truth and being forthright and being authentic that sometimes we can bruise people. And I've put my foot in my mouth more times than I care to admit. Even in my life right now, there are times where my bad side of my ENTJ comes out and I'm just like, oh, I totally could have handled that differently. You know what I mean? Had I been in a room full of ENTJs, it wouldn't have been an issue. But we live in a world where there's other people. Okay? So yes, an ENTJ can be a handful if they're not working to develop some of their weaker cognitive functions. My weakest cognitive function is feeling. All right, so for you feelers out there, I get to feeling last, and it's something that I have to very much work on to develop. Like when I walked in, we were having Easter dinner tonight, or Easter lunch dinner, whatever you want to call it, a cookout with my whole family at the house. And when I walked in with my kids, in my mind, I was like, I've got to go back outside and get this thing. I think it was my other child. I can't remember. But my mom was sitting there like, hello, happy Easter. Why didn't you hug me? Because for her, it was greeting her and being excited to see her that's important. My mom is a feeler, okay? You know, the way she makes decisions are based on values and how other people are going to be affected. That includes her. And I was making a decision at the time that was affecting her, like I was ignoring her, and I wasn't. I had this one-track mind, and I had to tell her, hey, I see you. I'm going to come back, and I'm going to hug you properly. I just got to go outside and get the baby. 10 years ago, I wouldn't have said anything. I would have made her feel bad, and then I wouldn't have come in the house and hugged her. I immediately came in the house, ran to her, wrapped my arms around her, and I hugged her, and I kissed her, said, I love you, Mom, happy Easter. 10 years ago, I wouldn't have done that. Not because I'm insensitive or I'm cold. It's just my brain doesn't work that way. But I've learned to make my brain work that way because I live on earth with other people, and I need to not be such a self-absorbed jerk, which I totally have the capacity to be if I allow it. But I work to not allow it. My wife just gave me the thumbs up. She says I'm a self-absorbed jerk. Oh, God.
Well, I was thumbs up because you work to not allow it.
What advice do you have for a Christian falling for an atheist? Don't.
Yep.
Don't fall for it. Don't, like, so I may be a little different than most people. I don't believe in this concept of falling in love, okay? Let's just be clear. I know that sounds weird, but let's break it down. Love is a choice. Love is choosing to put someone else's life, dreams, goals, ambitions, and needs on par and equal to, and sometimes more important than your own. That's love. You don't fall into that. You choose to do it. Now, I will say, you cannot often choose who you like. That's psychological. It's also biological, I think, in a lot of ways. There are certain people on earth, I just don't like them. I don't have anything against them. I don't think there's anything wrong with them. I'm just not wired to like that person because they get on my nerves because of how I'm wired. And I probably get on their nerves. And that's okay. We don't have to, I don't hate the person. I just may not want to spend my free time with them. I don't think you can necessarily choose who you like being around. I think that's a part of how your DNA and your psychology, how everything's coded. Love is a choice. You don't fall into that. Now, you may have an affinity for an atheist person, and that's cool. Okay? So let me be clear. So that I don't offend people here, I have a great deal of friends who are atheists, great deal of friends who are agnostics. I would marry none of them. Why? Because I told you that first foundational layer of a marriage is sharing similar values. If you are a Christian who believes in Christ, who believes in God, and that makes you who you are, at some point, and then you're marrying an atheist who believes all of that is nonsense, you at some point, both of you are going to ask the other to make a compromise that they're probably not going to be willing to make. And eventually, if you want to be happy in that relationship, one of you is going to compromise your values. And then you have to ask yourself, are you going to be able to maintain any level of happiness when you compromise your values? It goes back to the example I gave in the beginning of a vegan marrying someone that just eats all meat. It's doomed. Now, granted, I do have friends that do mix, and because they, and Christian and atheist, these are all labels and semantics depending on how we define them, etc. I think there are certain people who have levels of tolerance where they don't ask each other to compromise and they can make it work. I've seen it work, not with a Christian and an atheist, but with two people of different faiths, and they make it work. And there's really no strife. There's no conflict, at least not from what I've seen. I don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but by and large, Christian and atheist, I think, is a bad mix. And you're not falling for them. You just have an affinity for them. There's no such thing as falling in love. You can have affinity for folks and be drawn and captivated by people, but love, trust me, I tell people all the time, I like my wife. I like my wife a lot. And people will always be like, well, don't you love your wife? Sure. But love is easy because I get to choose that. Even on days where she gets on my nerves, I can choose to treat her properly. Right? Let's be clear, she very rarely gets on my nerves. That usually works the other way around. And I don't say that to be self-deprecating. I mean that. My wife, in a lot of ways, is just a better person than I am. But I'm not so bad myself either.
That's right.
But the point is, just no, you're not. Don't. And if you're a Christian, I'll even use the scripture on you. There's a scripture that says not to be unequally yoked. Now, that's not necessarily talking about marriage, but you can apply that to that. So the unequally yoked scripture, because that's going to sound weird to people who don't read the Bible, is talking about you have oxen, right, that are pulling a cart. If you have an ox that's insanely strong and fast, and one big fat oxen that can't run fast, they're going to pull the cart in a way that's going to break the yoke is what ties the oxen together when they're running. And if you don't have two equally strong oxen pulling in the same direction, the cart's never going to get where it's trying to go. And that's the same thing trying to mix an atheist and a Christian together. And I'm not saying you can't be friends with an atheist, or you can't hang out with an atheist. I do all the time. I'm talking about a marriage where you're both working together to build a family and do things in the world to affect change, and your approach, because your values are going to be different. There's a great potential there for a lot of conflict that you're probably not going to want to incur. Okay? Anna Jones says, thanks, Brian, for the live YouTube. That was great. I have to run, but please send me info about your marketing group. I need to connect with like-minded people. Thanks. Excellent. Certainly. Thanks for coming, Anna, and thanks for your great questions. Let's see. Sai says, why is my brother and I'm not sure what an into is. INTP. Not into. I don't have a good question for that. Science is still trying to figure out why people are born with certain personality types. I don't think they have it nailed down. I certainly don't have it nailed down. That's not, psychology is not my field of science. I am a scientist, but psychology was not something I ever studied. I studied it on my own after formal schooling. Reading a lot of the premier folks out there like Jonathan Haidt and Dr. David Buss. What's his name that wrote The Selfish Gene, although he's talking about genetics and biology more so than psychology. But I'm forgetting his name that wrote that. It's an awesome book, though. All right. What a Mitch 92 says, I'm an INFP woman and my boyfriend is an ENTP. Are there some common challenges with this pairing? Well, let's look it up. We've got INFP, which is, survey says, you're going to lead with introverted feeling, and your, what was it, ENTP was the other one. Your ENTP is going to lead with extroverted intuition. Let's see when the ENTP gets to feeling, if they do at all. Yes, so extroverted feeling is the ENTP's third function. And then for the INFP, you lead with introverted feeling. And then, so there's some good mixture in here with the cognitive functions for these two groups. Let's see what your tertiary and third. Okay, so you end with extroverted thinking and you have introverted sensing. This could be a very interesting mix. Nothing jumps off the page at me as this is headed for conflict necessarily, other than the INFP is going to lead with your personal values. So that's important. Your personal values are going to drive. I made a video about this earlier this week that says the most important thing an INFP needs to understand, which is your personal values are going to drive all your decisions. So you need to know what those values are and really solidify them. Your ENTP counterpart is going to have extroverted feeling as a tertiary or the third cognitive function, which is serving their extroverted intuition. So your ENTPs, that's an interesting matchup. I think it would be interesting to see because you lead with your personal values and the ENTP doesn't really get to the feeling decision-making process until third, and theirs is extroverted, so they're going to care more about how the decisions and the actions affect the group than the individual values. So as an INFP, you may be more inclined to be somewhat put off by a thing that somebody does because it went against one of your values, whereas your ENTP counterpart isn't necessarily going to be driven so much by that because their world is all about, their primary cognitive function is processing information, taking in loads of data, being able to see patterns and frameworks and big picture methodologies, right? They're looking at all this information and they're able to come up with, oh, here's the principle behind this really complicated thing, and they can do it off the top of their head. And then they move into introverted thinking, so they're going to take all that information in, and then they're going to take forever to make a decision. And then the decision then is going to be affected by, well, how is my decision going to affect the group? For you as the INFP, everything's going to be driven by your personal values, but then you also have extroverted intuition as your secondary. So you're close. You're both going to be able to communicate with one another about these frameworks and these big ideas. Okay? And then you're going to move into introverted sensing, which is how, not necessarily the world around you sensing, but what's going on with me. Like, do I have a headache? It's a terrible example, but it's a way to kind of illustrate that internal feeling. What's going on inside of you? Are you angry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? That's affecting, how you're processing information. And then you get to extroverted thinking at the end. So you're able to finally articulate yourself once you get to your last cognitive function, but it's also your least used. So nothing jumps out at the page that you all would necessarily have a great deal of conflict. I've not heard of there being a great deal of conflict between those two personality types. I think they could be interesting together, especially because you're both N types. I think that could be interesting. Let's see. Iceblade says, oh, wow, thank you. You've nailed it on the head. Sweet. Brittany says, difference between INFJ and ENFJ. So let's look at the cognitive functions. Your INFJ is going to lead with introverted intuition and then immediately move into extroverted feeling. And then what was the other one? ENFJ? I think I covered that on the YouTube channel too. ENFJ is extroverted feeling and then introverted intuition. So you're basically the mirror of each other. is the way I see that. Yeah, so SE and TI. And there's probably TI and SE, I bet. Yeah. So you're the mirror of one another. It's basically the best way I can describe that. See, Watercolor Wonder says, guys like me, but don't get me. How do I extrovert who I am more as an INFJ? Well, you're an introvert, so you're not, I guess you're trying to say, how do you express who you are more? Well, first of all, you're an NF temperament, so you spend your whole existence trying to define who you are. That goes for any NF, not just INFJs. But let's pull up the old INFJ here. Let's see. How can you better express? So the challenge I see here with you expressing who you are is the functions that would help you express yourself are both introverted, right? Your intuition and your thinking. So your decision-making process. As an extroverted thinker, I'm able to take what I think and just blurt it out easily. You are an introverted thinker, so you're going to live, and you're an introverted intuitor and an introverted thinker, which means you live in here. This is where everything happens as an INFJ. So the ability to articulate yourself may not come naturally for you because you're constantly doing the math in your brain, because again, you lead with intuition. The mathematics are constantly going on up here trying to figure out just who you are to even be able to put it into words. So I think a real simple way to pare that down a little bit is to kind of just figure out what your core values are as a person and be able to articulate that. Like, what really matters to you? What are the things that keep you up at night or that you wake up in the morning thinking about? And try to keep it simple, because as an INFJ, you're naturally going to try to complicate things and add. You probably have a wall full of sticky notes where you're trying to anytime you're trying to solve a problem, and then making the decision is also hard. So boil it down and keep things a little bit more simple. I think that would make it easier for you to articulate yourself. Landon Aldridge says, thank you for your service, bro. My pleasure. Thank you for saying so. All right. Izumi says, I want to ask questions, but I got to go to school. I totally understand. Let's see what's happening over here. Let's refresh the Facebook group, because that thing crapped out, it looked like. Guardian Soul Blade says, just popped in to say hi. Hi, Guardian Soul Blade. Good to see you always. All right. Island Jane says, these days it seems marriages don't last. And a lot of the times it's due to cheating. And if they do last, they're keeping infidelity a secret. Why do men cheat and then pretend everything is fine? So a couple of things statistically, let's talk about this here. We're going to talk about this in some detail in the program. The marriage rate, because you always hear people say the divorce rate's at 50%. It's actually not. I think last time they checked it's closer to 40. And I think the divorce rate was actually declining. But here's the problem with that data, or with that assertion. What we don't know yet from looking at census data is the divorce rate declining because people aren't getting married as much? A lot of the younger generations, I'm really the last generation, I think, that got married early. And in fact, my generation doesn't get married early. I was an exception to the rule. I got married in my very early 20s. So most people don't do that. Most people don't get married till they're in their 30s, right? And so I don't think marriage is really under the siege that so many people scream about because they misread a headline or an article. But the next part of your question is, a lot of relationships break up due to cheating. I don't know about dating relationships. Again, the last time I dated somebody was before Match.com existed. But I think, at least in marriages, what breaks up most marriages is money. It's not cheating. And I have a host of people I've heard from and talked to about, infidelity doesn't wreck marriages as much as money does. And I can tell you from personal experience of people whom I've known where that's been a reality in their relationships. And it didn't end the relationship at all. Now in dating, maybe, in dating, it's a little that type of offense is easy just to cut somebody off. When you're married and you have a bunch of kids, you have to really start thinking about, okay, this happened. Now, do we throw away, like if my wife and I had that situation, and we've had this conversation, like, do we throw away 15 years of happiness because of one act of indiscretion, right? Now, granted, neither one of us have the desire, the capability, or in my case, even the energy to think about doing that crap. But she gave me the thumbs up. Yeah, like me, like we're too tired to cheat on each other. Like even I don't want to because I love her dearly and I actually like her a lot, and I think she's gorgeous and all this stuff. But even if I did, I have too many kids, man. I'm too tired. Like I could never date another woman and have to go on the relationship building train to make that happen. Like, no, it's not happening in our relationship. But I don't want it to happen. But I think infidelity in marriage probably wrecks less marriages. I mean, it's just proven that money is the key issue that wrecks most marriages. But the next part of your question is, why do men cheat and then pretend everything is fine? Well, I don't know why every man cheats. I think in a lot of cases, men, the hunter-gatherer nature of our existence makes the hunt fun for us. Not just in sex, but in most areas of life. And so if that hunt is missing in the house, then they may find the hunt elsewhere and then realize, what they did wasn't worth it. And why do they act like everything's fine? I don't think they pretend everything's fine. I just think it's such a shameful act. Nobody is proud after they went out and did that. Like, yo, did you hear what I did last week? Yeah. Nobody I know that's lived through that has been excited or proud. Like, so they're not pretending everything is fine. They're ashamed. And that's a hard thing to come to grips with and have a conversation with. It's not, I don't think it's, and I can't speak for every man. Maybe some men do pretend everything's fine and because they're psychopaths. I think that's the answer to that. Like, if they're doing that to somebody, which would be insanely hurtful, and then just like, what's wrong with you? All I did was X, Y, Z, then they're probably a psychopath, which you do need to run away from. But I think in most cases, it's probably the shame is so heavy that they don't pretend like everything's okay. They just act as if it never happened because they don't want to emotionally deal with it. That's my 2 cents. All right. The Mad Hatter says, may I sabotage y'all's discussion by mentioning twin souls and kindred spirits? Let's see. John Shohan says, how can I tell if I'm an ENTJ or an ENTP? Take the test. Take the Myers-Briggs test. 16personalities.com. Knock it out. Guardian Soul Blade says, I've heard stories on Dave Ramsey's show about financial infidelity a lot. There you go. All right. Looks like I got through all of the existing questions. Let's go back to the Facebook group. Make sure I didn't miss anything crazy. All right. Oh, we got questions in the Facebook group as well. Sorry to have, I'm not trying to ignore Facebook. It's Facebook's been acting crazy. But Marilyn Joy says, introvert, Dear is a good Facebook page for introverts. They totally get me. You too. And you look like my nephew. And you love God. Yeah, cool. I can't verify that I look like your nephew, but I do love God, so that's cool. Marilyn Joy says, I'm an ISFJ. No love relationship, but I'm learning for next one if I choose to have a next one. Happy Easter. He is risen. That he is. Thank you, Marilyn. That is joyful to hear from you. Let's go ahead and do that. So I see my wife liked the video on Facebook as well. What other questions might you all have? Again, we don't just have to stick to personality type questions. I'm happy to stay in that vein. You can ask me anything you like, though. Nicole Lett, or is it Letty, says, I'm attracted to men who can be dangerous. A man I was close to has called me crazy, so I feel as though I want to date someone worse than me, so I'm not having a negative influence on anyone. Is there any way I can change the type I'm attracted to? Dangerous. So I think we've got to define some things for you first, Nicole. We have to figure out, what does dangerous mean? By dangerous, do you mean a man who's like robbing liquor stores? That's pretty dangerous. Or for you, could dangerous be, you know, a SWAT team officer who puts himself in harm's way every night as a police officer, or a firefighter? That's pretty dangerous, you know. So we have to define what's dangerous for you. And the man you were close to called you crazy. Well, we got to define crazy too. What makes you crazy? You know, changing the type of people that you're attracted to is probably going to be tough. I don't know that you can change. Like I said, you don't really get to pick who you like. You can certainly pick who you love, but you can't necessarily pick who you're drawn to. I think that's just part of our psychology and biology. But before I can really answer anything for you, we have to define dangerous and we have to define crazy. Right? What according to this gentleman made you crazy? You know, and then trying to change who you're attracted to, I think, is probably not the healthiest way to go, because you'll put in a lot of effort and be disappointed. I think it's more taking that dangerous aspect and finding healthy dangerous. You know, finding guys that are bodybuilders and SWAT team, and, you know, guys that are special forces, Navy SEALs type dudes who are attracted to danger and chaos. You know, a lot of guys that have military backgrounds like me, we are attracted to chaos because we like to. You know, that commercial with the Marines where they're running toward chaos. That's a specific type of person. Not everybody is wired to run toward chaos head first and to take it on. Some of us had the blessing or the curse, I don't know what you call it, to be born with the innate ability and desire to run toward that chaos, to have that sense of danger. But, you know, you don't want unhealthy danger. You don't want to be dating crack dealers, right? There's a healthy way to be attracted to someone who's a little bit dangerous. But crazy, I can't really help you with until you can define that. Robin Wilson says, I'm a female INFP, and my boyfriend is ESTP. How do I make our relationship better and help us understand each other better and connect on a deeper level? So the first thing, this is what I tell everybody of any personality type in a relationship: read everything about ESTPs, their cognitive functions, everything that the different websites, the good websites about personality types can teach you about an ESTP. Have your boyfriend do the same thing for an INFP. You know, there's things when I read about my wife's personality type and I really started to study it, I was like, oh, that's why she does this. And now I can adjust my behavior and I can speak with a language that her heart can hear. And it's the same thing. So it's not necessarily can I give you specific tips and tricks for each personality type. Just learn each other's personality types very deeply and intimately and learn how to speak one another's language. And then a lot of the stuff that you may be running into that's conflict will start to work itself out because you're approaching the situation selflessly instead of selfishly, which is, why doesn't she understand me? Why doesn't she get me? Why doesn't he understand me? Why doesn't he get me? Why can't he just? Turn that around on yourself and say, it's my responsibility to make the relationship happy for me. Why don't I just? Why don't I learn how to understand him? And then give him the same exercise. And I think that'll help you both a lot. Landon Aldridge says, is everyone generally happy with their type's traits? I know I am, ENTJ. I'm cool. I mean, we have strengths and weaknesses. I'm okay with both. I'm accepting, I guess, more so than liking. What do you feel are some good ways for a person to go about becoming less selfish? Donate your time to things that have nothing to do with you. Go work at homeless shelters. Go work at elderly homes. One of the things I do with my family, and I try to do it more often than we do, unfortunately we don't get around to it as much as I'd like, is we go out, especially when it's cold, the cold season, we pack backpacks and I pack my old rucksack full of food and we go feed the homeless. It's really committing yourself to things that take you out of you and give to other people. That's the way it gets done. You know, you're not going to will yourself into being less selfish. You're not going to read books that make you less selfish. You actually, the way you become less selfish is to do selfless acts and make it a regular part of your routine. The Mad Hatter says, I think a lot of relationship problems stem from everyone trying to stabilize a relationship where both parties aren't in true love with each other. They should just accept each other and move on. I think there's some truth to that. Again, I don't like to use the term in love. I think love is a choice, not a situation you fall into. I think affinity is something that happens that you don't always get to choose, but love is a choice. But the spirit of what the Mad Hatter is saying here, I think, has a semblance of truth to it. That in some cases you just need to accept the fact that two people aren't compatible, especially if you're not married. Yeah, and he says this is just for dating, by the way. Exactly right. So if you're not married, sometimes, yeah, you just have to be like, I've dated women where it's just like, you know what? No, this isn't going to work out. And we both know it's not going to work out long term. We're not a good fit. And I think, yeah, rather than waste time trying to make something work that's just not really destined to work, stop wasting each other's time and just go find someone else, or be alone. Be alone for a while and learn how to work on you. It's also very valuable. Cool. Anyway, I hope everybody's getting a lot out of these conversations here. I hope to be doing more live conversations like this in the future, both on Facebook and on YouTube. I'll try to broadcast on both. Definitely be following me on Facebook if you're on YouTube and you're not there already, because Facebook is where the conversations happen. It's where the good stuff really goes down. YouTube is where I make a lot of content, and hopefully I get something in front of you that helps you in your day. And hopefully you guys are keeping up with my daily vlogs as well, not just watching my personality type videos. My daily vlogs have a lot of me expounding on some of the principles I talk about in the personality type videos, where I'm showing you how to apply these things or how other people have applied these things and been successful in their lives, right? And so you'll get a lot out of the daily vlogs as well, because I do those more often than I do personality type videos. Because with personality type videos, especially because they're usually based on your questions, I need to go do some research because a lot of this stuff I can't just answer off the top of my head. I need to go research, because certain personality types I know better than others from my studies, and I have to go read up on stuff. And then put together thoughts in my mind for how I'm going to frame the discussion. And sometimes I get it wrong. I mean, my personality type videos aren't perfect. There's mistakes that I've made in there. There's parts of the Myers-Briggs, frankly, that I disagree with. I think the way it tests. I think some things it doesn't do a very great job at. And other tests that we will get into in the future, like Hexaco, Enneagram, and we'll talk about the dark triad test. That's going to be fun. I'm going to have in the how to build a healthy and happy marriage program, I'm actually going to make everybody take the dark triad and see what your results are. You can go take it now if you like, and then we can talk about it once we get there. Mr. Veter, or Miss Veter, I'm not sure if that's a Mr. or Miss, says, I really enjoyed the session. Great. I enjoyed having you here. Landon says, as an ENTJ, have you ever always told yourself you're not good enough yet? Or is that just personal? I know, weird question. It's not necessarily weird. No, I don't always tell myself I'm not good enough. For me, I just work until I am good enough. I like to get like, for example, to speak on camera, to be on stage. I've probably spent 20,000 hours of my life talking in front of people. So I'm good enough. I don't ever worry about flipping a camera on or going to do a public speaking engagement and worry about, am I good enough? No, I know I'm good enough because not because I'm amazing, because I've been doing this forever. Seriously, been doing it forever. There's some areas of my life where if I think I'm not good enough, I won't say it. I'll just keep my mouth shut and either walk away from it because it's just something I'm not destined to be amazing at, or I'll just hustle until I get good enough at it to where I don't have that fear or that concern. But anyway, like I said, I hope everybody's got a lot out of tonight's discussion. I think I'm going to go ahead. I'll take a couple last-minute questions if you have them. Be sure, obviously, you should be subscribed here on YouTube if you're watching. If you're watching on Facebook, definitely like the Facebook page. But if you're on YouTube, remember, I'm going to post this again. So that's my Facebook page. Definitely give that a look. And then, and so you want to like us on Facebook, and I'll explain why here in a minute. It's not about getting my numbers up so much as it's about helping you all more directly. All right, here is my Instagram, and I have a purpose for each of these. So on the Facebook page, and Maggie, I see your question. I will jump in here in 1 second. On the Facebook page, this is where the conversations happen. in ways that YouTube doesn't allow. And yes, you all send me comments and I try to respond to them, but it's especially tough to respond properly when I'm on a mobile device, which is how I spend a lot of my day away from a computer. And it's hard for me to really engage with you the way I want to on a mobile device because it just doesn't make the conversation easy. YouTube just isn't up on the social game as much as Facebook is. Facebook, I'm also able to post different types of content that won't work on YouTube. The same thing goes for Instagram. So if you've been following this channel since the beginning, you know I was doing book reviews. Book reviews on YouTube can go either way. I've got some that have done well, and I read books that are not usually, they're not entertainment books. These are books about really developing oneself, and developing as a professional and as a person. So a lot of the books that I want to review are not exciting, like, ooh, the new Harry Potter. So I moved that over to Instagram because the reviews are short and I can get through the content very quickly in less than a minute and then just encourage everyone to go read it. And I can position it such that a lot of people can find it. So that happens there. I also do some fun stuff on Instagram. Snapchat is where I pretty much just do all fun stuff. I talk about my video game hobby. I talk about, I do funny comedy videos, stuff that I used to do back in the day before I got into, kind of the self-help industry and stuff like that there. So definitely follow us on Facebook because Facebook is where you and I are going to stay connected beyond just me making videos and talking to you here, where we can actually chat back and forth and you can ask questions. And a lot of the questions that I get on Facebook turn into videos. With the permission of the person, because sometimes I get I get personal questions about whether or not people should end a marriage, which one encourages me because it means these videos are highly effective. Two, scares me to death because I'm not necessarily qualified to speak to that level into someone's life whom I've just met. But with people's permission, sometimes they'll ask me to make a video about it. I'm like, okay, how much detail do you want me to share? And they'll tell me, and then I'll make a video. So a lot of your requests for me to talk about things are much better shared on Facebook because I won't lose it. If you put it on YouTube, it's going to get buried if I don't see it right away. And I may not ever see your question on YouTube because it's just the way YouTube works. All right. And then Instagram is where we can stay connected. And you're staying connected not just with my book reviews, but more what's happening in my life as well. Like yesterday on Instagram, I filmed a freestyle rap battle with my little baby, and I had one of his stuffed animal frogs who was the hip hop frog, and some fun stuff that we do in the family. So you can see how we live. I don't just make videos and write blogs and do marketing all day. We actually live a life, and I don't really put my kids on camera a ton because I want them to live a life free of being scrutinized by the internet. But every once in a while, I'll put them on there. Anyway. Those are the two things I want you to definitely follow tonight before you go to bed. And then Maggie says, what advice would you give an INFJ who hasn't started dating yet? Don't start dating. That's my advice to everybody. Go find someone that you could trust that can hook you up with somebody. And I'm kind of joking. That's how I got married. I dated in high school and in college, and I sucked at it. I hated dating. God, I hated dating so much. And it's funny, too. I'm so glad I'm married now because when I listen to my single friends who have to go through, like, Match.com, and I mean single friends at all ages, in their 20s, 40s, doesn't matter. And it's just a nightmare. Like, nobody's been like, I had the most awesome experience on Match.com. I met this woman. I think we're going to get married. It's amazing. Like, it's not the story I ever hear. It's always, I met this guy at the place, and he didn't have any shoes on. Or it's always some horror story. But if you haven't started dating yet, really, really spend time, and especially if you're young, I imagine is the case, don't be in a rush to date. Don't just to do it. And look, Hollywood's going to make dating look glamorous and fun, and if you don't have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, you're not doing it right. And it's just so not true, because when you do finally get into a relationship where you are fulfilled, you look back on all your dating experiences and they're kind of funny. It's like, wow, that was hilarious. Not that the people in those relationships aren't good people. It's just you weren't ready yet. You weren't developed. And if I could give any advice to 14 or 15-year-old me before I started dating, it's, dude, spend time reading and understanding yourself and developing as a human being for yourself. And don't be led astray by Hollywood and TV where they tell you that all these feelings that you feel inside need to be quelled by having some significant other in your life, because it's just not true. I never really dated anybody in my younger days where they fulfilled me. especially not the way my wife does now, because I've been taught how to actually build relationships the right way. Right? It's and it doesn't happen by just dating. You know, it's I've never and so you're hearing some of my bias. I don't want to tell you what to do in your life, obviously. I'm not a big fan of dating. I'm a big fan of, like, with my wife, we didn't really date. I saw a picture of her in my now cousin's photo album, because it was a picture of his wife and now my wife. He's like, hey, check out this new picture and this is the story how I met my wife. He pulled out a picture of his wife. We were training together in some far off, horrible place before we went to war. And he showed me the picture. He's like, hey, I got a new picture of my wife. I was like, oh, yeah, she looks beautiful. And I was like, hold up. Who's this other chick in the picture? She's bad, dude. And he was like, oh, that's my cousin. And I looked at him like, wait a minute. You've known this chick all this time and you didn't hook us up? What's wrong with you? And I was teasing him, but I was kind of being serious. So he took me seriously, and he had her over to the house after Christmas one year for a party we were having at our boss's house. He's like, come over to my house first. My cousin's here. You'll get to meet her. I was like, yeah, sure enough. And I went to meet her. And she and I got to know, like, I was actually trying to date another girl at the time when I met my wife. We weren't dating because that girl did not want to date me at all. It was me pursuing her. That was a one-way street. No animosity, no bitterness. Me and her are still... In fact, me and her husband immediately loved one another when I met him. Because he reminds me, he's like a carbon copy of the quarterback from my football team when I was growing up, which I'm very close to. Anyway, ended well. And so I didn't start dating her, but I did keep in contact with her. And over time, I just was her friend. We just got to know each other. And I was like, man, her story is just like mine. Oh, man, she has similar ambitions to mine to help change the world and cure the human condition and to make people's souls come alive and learn how to live happy. Like, wow, we really match. And then we just kept getting to know each other. And over time, we would meet up with each other for dinner and have intimate conversations or spend time together. So it was dating, but it wasn't like traditional dating. And then eventually it was like, hey, I think this is going to work. I know you, you know me, you know all my crap, I know all your crap, and I still like you. Why don't we get married? You know, after about a year of us hanging out. But what we did first was become really good friends. And I know that's taboo for young people. Like, ugh, like, I can't date him. He's like, when I hear young people say, I can't date this person, I don't want to ruin our friendship, or we're friends. If you're really close friends, it's exactly who you need to be dating. Because that friendship is what's going to carry. Now, granted, if you're 14, this doesn't make any sense to you right now because you're not thinking about getting married. But when you're thinking about getting married, you better hope to God you were really good friends with that guy or that girl, because that's what's going to carry you. All the romance and the kissing and the hugging and the sex and all that, that's great. It's amazing. It isn't what holds a relationship together. All that feely stuff, it ain't it. That wears off after about a week and a half. What keeps you together is the friendship, the going through things together and becoming stronger. So look to develop friendships, and then from those good, and now granted, if you're a female and you're talking about dudes with hormones, you know, they may be maintaining the friendship with ulterior motives, but you'll sniff those dudes out. You really will. It's not hard to figure out when someone has an ulterior motive. But when you're developing the friendship, that's what's going to carry you across the finish line. I promise you. What's kept us in the game, she's now asleep on the couch. She's no longer sitting here with me. But what's kept us in the game, despite all of my crazy, all of her crazy, all of our issues and a bunch of kids and stress and finances and blah, 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 is that friendship. We are best friends. And we look out for each other and we pick each other up when we fall. We don't tear each other down, or I wish you were different, I wish you were someone else. It's, you are who you are, I love you, but I also like you. Come on, let's do this. Let's encourage one another and be better. Okay? So, yeah, my advice to you if you haven't started dating is just learn how to build relationships. I don't mean romantic, lovey-dovey crap. I mean learn how to relate to other people in friendships. And then from learning how to build relationships, you'll be able to have that perfect cake where it's, I have the friendship layer and the values and the tolerance and all the stuff I talked about in the beginning. Now I really like this person too. And now I can put love on top of it and say I can choose to treat this person properly and love them. And from your pool of friends, you'll know whether the affinities are stronger and where you share values and you share temperaments. Okay, that's very boiled down advice that would take me an hour to map out properly. That's why I'm building this marriage and happy relationship program, because I need to, those types of things I need to flesh out a lot heavier than what I'm talking about here on a live call. But I think that's enough to get you started. Let's see. Cheyenne M says, your opinion on ENTJ and INTP relationship dating. ENTJ here, currently dating INTP, and so far it's been electric. So yeah, like I said in the beginning, I think the personality types in a lot of cases are less important than make sure you have values that match. You're both tolerant people with similar temperaments going in the same direction. And then the personality type sits at the top of that layer cake. So, you know, whether you're an ENTJ or an IS, whatever, I think there are certain types that are naturally going to have conflict. I don't think ENTJ and INTP was the other one, I think, is one of those. Let's see. Veter says, thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. Oh, it's not my wisdom. It's wisdom that other people have planted into my head, believe me. It's me vocally plagiarizing all the stuff my mentors have taught me. And it's another thing too. Get mentors, you guys and ladies. I have a ton of them, and I've had at least 2 mentors since I was a little kid, and then the mentors have just stacked on each other. And a lot of the mentors I've had since I was a kid, I still have to this day. And I take on new mentors. Like I have a life mentor. It's an older guy that's in my life right now. That dude beats the crap out of me, but he makes me a better person. You know, he gets me to see the crap in me and the good in me. Let's see. John Bernard says, these programs you have mentioned, is there a price associated? Yes. So my marketing program, which I posted earlier, does have a price. The How to Build a Happy Marriage, Happy and Healthy Marriage program will have a price. It'll be a monthly fee similar to like a Netflix or something like that, where there's no lock-in. Like you can just come and go as you please, and every month we'll have new content where, you know, we'll drop a video every month and then we'll actually discuss the video. So think of it like a workshop where you'll come and you'll get, here's the thing that we're talking about this month. Now leave me your comments and your questions, and my wife and I will be in there actually interacting with all of you. And then we'll probably have a VIP program, which is a little bit more, and I'm hoping to have a monthly live call where we actually physically talk to the VIPs. Not like this where I'm talking and you're commenting, but we're actually talking to one another. So there will be a price associated with that program. My marketing program is already up and running. That has all the prices on the website. We have not locked down what the price for this is going to be. We have a good idea of what we think we're going to do, but we want to get everything refined, and we're going to test the system first, and then we'll lock down the price and let everybody know what it is. Let's see. Maggie Mosby says, how much do you think people's values should match in different types of relationships? Friendship, dating, marriage. So I think we can just take dating out of the equation. Let's just use friendship and marriage. In marriage, your values have to match. They need to be aligned with one another. You know what I mean? I don't think every little thing in your values has to be exactly the same. You know, my wife, I'm not my wife is more political than I am. She cares a lot more about politics than I'm like, I'd rather change the world working with people than try to change this train wreck of a system we have here. But then I have people in my family who are very much dedicated to changing the system. Our values aren't necessarily different. Our way of going about getting the values executed differs very heavily. You know, but again, going back to tolerance. So I think values have to be very close, if not the same. In things that really matter. You know, if your values are, I don't eat Snickers, I eat whatever, you know, that type of crap doesn't matter. But when it comes to how you raise your children, what are your faith beliefs, or do you have any faith beliefs? Like earlier tonight, we talked about Christians and atheists and why I think you shouldn't try to make that work in a marriage. But when it comes to a friendship, I got tons of friends that are atheists. They know I'm not an atheist. They know what I believe. But it doesn't matter. We care about each other. You know what I mean? I can be friends with anybody. Now, I probably wouldn't be friends with someone who's an active murderer. You know what I mean? Like, that's an extreme example, but I can befriend people, and then, the level of friendship, whether they're kind of in my inner circle or not, depends. But friendship, I think, you don't have to be as scrutinizing. Now, but the people that you spend the most time with should be people that share your values, I think. Landon says, my comment was ignored. Sorry about that, Landon. I must have missed what you said. Peter says, totally agree with the things you say about the relationships and everything. The MBTI is not very important. It is good. I think it's important. It's just not. I think people put too much, hey, I'm an ESTJ, can I date this? It's like, well, I don't know if that dude's a psychopath, regardless of what someone's personality type is. If they're a psychopath, they're going to be a bad fit. Their personality is irrelevant. You know what I mean? It's not that I think the personality types aren't important. It's that I don't think they're the most important thing. I think there's other foundational layers that you need to establish. Then look at the personality types and say, all of these things match, but we're going to have a lot of conflict because our personality types are going to have us doing this all the time. But you can also look at it like, well, with my wife and our personality differences, we don't do this, we do this. We balance each other. I keep her from getting taken advantage of. She lets me know when what I'm saying makes me sound like a jerk. Make sense? John Bernard says, will you be uploading this as a video later? And will you be streaming like this more often? Yes, and yes. All right. I think we've made our way through the questions. Let's double check the Facebook group. Make sure I didn't miss anything there. Let's see what we got. Landon says, I see how it is strictly no political talk. I don't mind political talk. I think I just missed whatever you said. I have no problem talking politics. Happy to do it. You just repost what you said. I'm happy to answer it. I just missed it. And was it political talks related to relationships, or was it completely off topic? Wait. Sal's having a seizure, it looks like. Sal, you all right? Or Sai, excuse me. Sai, you okay out there? Thank you so much. Learning a lot, says Island Jane. Thank you for coming. What do you think of Hillary Clinton? I don't really know her. I've had limited interaction with her when I used to work on Capitol Hill. I have a very close friend who is very close to the Clintons, worked with them as Bill Clinton, one of Bill Clinton's very close aides. So I've learned a lot about the Clinton family and how, they have great desire to give back to the world. So I don't have any personal stories about Hillary Clinton because I've never had those interactions with her and Bill. My friend seems to like them a great deal and thinks a lot of what they do is good. I don't really have a personal opinion either way. I think as people, they seem to be okay. Guardian Soulblade says his comment got redacted. Redacted? Wasn't me that did it. Jessan says, Landon asked, have you seen the personality and political party crossover studies? Personality and political party crossover studies. There seem to be conservative/liberal values bred into the different types. Or is that too environmental? I'd say no to the first question. I have not seen personality and political party crossover studies, but it's not something I would really look for because I'm about as apolitical as a person can get. So I probably would not have seen that. There seem to be conservative and liberal values bred into the different types. I don't know, maybe. Or is that too environmental? I'm not sure what you mean by environmental. I think there could be some truth to that. I've not really studied personality types in politics. Again, politics just make me exhausted because I think politics and bureaucracy are a very ineffective way for us to get to solving collective population issues. It's my take on the whole political world. So it's not something I study because I've worked with politicians a great deal in a previous career. Wasn't a fan of many of the, I won't say the people, because the interactions that I had were just exhausting and bureaucratic, and frankly, the interactions that I had a lot of times were BS. It was BS situations born out of trying to get votes and, bringing us into situations to help make that a reality. So I think when it comes to politics, people are way too closed-minded. I think they struggle with the cognitive bias called the certainty bias, where my way's right and I know it's right and you're wrong because you don't believe what I'm saying. And I think no conversation ever ends well that starts with, hey, liberals, you blah, 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 or hey, conservatives, you until we can, I think it was either Warren Buffett or his business partner, Charlie Munger, says never make an argument with somebody until you can make their argument better than they can. And nobody I see in the political world does that. Nobody that I know that's highly liberal ever thinks anything on the conservative side has any merit. They just think they're all a bunch of idiots and Tea Party, gun-toting, blah, blah, blahs. And the same thing with the highly conservative people who are very vocal. Very rarely do I see people that are, oh, you know what? This thing that so-and-so that's a Democrat rolled out is actually a good idea. Politics thrives on conflict, which is something my personality type doesn't like. And it thrives on fabricated conflict. It's like turn everything into cowboys and Indians. They're the bad guys, we're the good guys, and let's get it on. That's kind of how the system's been running forever. And it's just exhausting and pointless to me. So that's a very long way of answering, no, I haven't seen what you're talking about. But I'm giving you why I haven't seen it. It's because I'm just not really interested. A lot of mob mentality in politics, says Sai. Sure. Okay. Cool. So, yeah, Sai, I definitely wasn't trying to ignore your question. Now that I've seen it, I don't know that I'm really qualified to answer it because I haven't seen the studies that you're talking about. John Bernard says, as an INFJ, I want to change the world. And the idealistic tendency is strong with me, but politics burn me out because it stresses me out how nothing gets done with a lot of conflict. So I think that's a little extreme. I think things do get done. I think I have family members who are politicians who are doing a lot of good things. It's just I watch the stress and the hoops they have to jump through to make those good things happen. And for me, just me, those hoops aren't usually worth the payoff. It's too slow. That's why I chose the entrepreneurial route, because I think, these types of interactions where I think government starts with the individual, like we have to govern ourselves. And if I can teach people how to live a life that gets them closer to happiness without screwing up the entire world or having bad mentalities, then I will have done my part and the system will work itself out. Maggie Mosby says, John Bernard, I totally understand that. So, yeah, I think politics is definitely exhausting for me. But so just remember, with your tendency to want to change the world, changing the world starts with the person next to you. So take it from trying to change the entire world to just trying to change the world you live in. Who are the closest people to you that you can have a positive impact on? And then that positive impact can spread out and eventually affect the entire world by starting with a small seed. Cool. And with that said, I think, unless there's any burning desire questions, I'm going to go ahead and get ready to wrap up. Let me double check the Facebook group once again to make sure you guys are following me on Facebook. If you haven't already, I've placed the link here a couple times. I'll place it again before we get ready to log off here. Be sure to get me there. And then I think my Instagram page is tied to that, but why not post that as well? And there you go. So Maggie Mosby says, it is strange that I'm an INFJ who does not like conflict but loves debate. So yeah, I think debate, it can be healthy, especially like I'm an ENTJ. I like intellectual sparring because it helps me solidify the things that are in my brain. As an introverted intuitor, sometimes it's hard for me to get that thing in here out. And by debating with someone else, it helps me to solidify what's going on in here, and it helps me to see the flaws in what I'm thinking. So I think healthy debate that's not centered around trying to prove that you're right, but in just trying to have the discussion, it can be very healthy. John Bernard, thanks for the advice and for taking the time to stream in Easter. Yeah, happy Easter, everybody. I love it. Maggie Mosby, thank you so much. Your advice is great. Happy Easter. Same to you. So thank you all for coming tonight. God bless every single one of you, like I always say. And I say this in my videos, and I want to say this live so everyone can kind of see me. When I end a video and I say, I love you guys, all right, that's not some cliched way of trying to end a video. I literally mean that your existence on this earth matters to me, and your ability to achieve your goals and whatever makes you happy, obviously without hurting other people, it matters to me. So when I say I love you, that means I'm committed to helping you in any way that I can, that I have the capability and the resource and the time and the capacity to help. I want to do that. So it's not some type of familial affinity or romantic love. This is literally the way I think love was designed to be, which is just taking care of other people. And I've been fortunate enough throughout my life to have careers where my whole focus has been taking care of other people and helping them become better than they were before I came along. And then they usually do the same for me, even greater than I'm capable of doing for them. So that's what I mean by that. Remember always that we are stronger than I alone. And it's been a great stream for me. Hopefully you all got something great out of it. Be sure to subscribe to YouTube. Be sure to like the page over here, Facebook. Get at me on Instagram. Get at me on Snapchat too, man. That's where we're having fun. If you get on Snapchat, it's at Bry Chambers. There's a funny bee costume video that I did, and I don't know if I'm ever gonna do it again because it's stupid, but I think it's hilarious. You guys and ladies will get a kick out of it. As always, God bless you all. I will see you soon. God bless you, and good night.